Ladies and gentlemen, who has had a good day? Anybody had a good day? Has anybody had a good conference so far? A good conference, really? Good to hear that. It's only getting better from now on, believe it or not. Believe it or not. This is a very, very special moment in our conference when we look at the road traveled by since the Brighton Declaration. I personally remember the year 1994 with great fondness. I was the young Secretary General of the International Council of Sports Science and Physical Education. Yes, you remember that, when we were young and beautiful, you and I. Those good old days. And this city was also vibrantly sporty. We had the European Championships in athletics in this city. We also bestowed a scientific prize to the International Olympic Committee. Juan Antonio Samaranch was here. And I remember vividly discussions with the Olympic leadership on their plans to promote gender equity within the context of the 1994 12th Olympic Congress, which was important in the history of Olympism and in the history also, of course, of gender equity from their perspective. But from the wider perspective of gender equity in sports, Brighton was fundamental. Brighton was the first step. Nobody believed that it would be what it is today, and we are here today in this moment to celebrate that great step forward. I did something yesterday that I love doing from my scientific days. I didn't go to the party last night. I didn't go to the party. But tonight, I will come tonight. But what I did is, while you girls were having fun, and guys were having fun, I was home reading this. Who has even looked at this in their packages? We have some good students and we have some bad students. It's okay, we understand that. This is actually a very, very, very good book. A very good perspective on what's gone well and what's gone maybe not so well. But we need the data, we need the facts. If you can't measure it, you can't do anything about it. So now it's been measured by 4 tremendous scientists. First one is somebody I've known 22 years. She was the young president of the International Sports Sociology Association at that time. I always knew that she would become something great when she grew up. She is Professor Dr. Kari Fasting, who's now Professor Emerita at the Department of Social Cultural Studies and at the Norwegian School of Sports Sciences. We're all fans of her, we know that, yes. So am I, and I'm glad that we have such a long relationship. And believe it or not, Kari did this on a voluntary basis. She wanted to be and I think that's something very, very special. You gotta love science to do that. That's amazing. She has a great successor at the ISSA, Professor Elizabeth Pike, Head of Sport Development and Management at the University of Chichester in the UK, who's also with us. Tremendous work here. And they have 2 wonderful gentlemen. So it's a very gender equal group of scientists. 2 wonderful gentlemen. Mr. Trond Svela, sports sociologist from the Department of Cultural and Social Studies at the Norwegian School of Sports Sciences, he likes to say that he's Kari's personal and scientific assistant. And then another young man who's remarkable. Believe it or not, at this time, he is writing his PhD on IWG. This man, believe it or not, Jordan Matthews, Research Officer for Women and Sport based within the Sports Development and Management Development of the University of Chichester in the UK. Please welcome all 4 fantastic scientists to the stage. Thank you very much.
Dear friends, as indicated in the title of this session, over the next half an hour or so, we will give you a summary of the progress made in the era of women in sport over the last 20 years. As you can see, throughout this project, we have been a team, and I'm not going to introduce them because that was just done. But the main aim of this has been to compile a progress report that could be a source of inspiration to advance the status of and opportunities for girls and women in sport. The data sources for the report have been the previous IWG progress reports, plus an empirical study to account for the previous 8 years' worth of women and sport progress. Now, not all of you, but very many of you have participated in this study, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank you very much for having answered this very long questionnaire, which also for some of you was very difficult to fill out. And I would also like to thank you all, those of you who have corresponded with me and that was sending in pictures and also wrote more about these specific case studies that we have included. So thank you, everyone. In 2011, the IWG commissioned the Anita White Foundation at the University of Chichester to conduct an analysis and review of the IWG progress report from 1994 to 2010. Their publication is available on the IWG website, but the main results from their work have been included in our progress report. We don't have much time, so just let us start. I therefore give the floor to Jordan, who is going to say something about the content analysis of the former progress reports. He will be followed by Trond, who will present the methodology of the empirical study that we have done, followed by Elisabeth, and I, who will present some of the main results before I close the sessions with some conclusions. So.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Kari. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Since its origins at the first World Conference for Women in Sport in Brighton in 1994, the IWG has aimed to monitor and evaluate the developments, actions, and awareness of global progress for women in sport advances. To do this, progress reports have been produced for the subsequent 4 World Conferences on Women in Sport. From Brighton to Windhoek in 1998, from Windhoek to Montreal in 2002, from Montreal to Kumamoto in 2006, and from Kumamoto to Sydney in 2010. Each progress report was structured similarly, with a historical overview, a selection of good practice, an A to Z of worldwide action, and a review of progress made. As you may be able to see, each report did this differently, and thus some were more detailed than others. In total, there are reports from 341 individual governmental and non-governmental groups and organizations across the reports. For the Anita White Foundation publication, we focused on the recorded progress for women in sport cumulatively. An overall trend from the 1994 to 2010 period indicates a high number of signatories of the Brighton Declaration in the years immediately following the 1994 conference, with the number of new signatories decreasing in more recent years. 217 governments, sports councils and ministries, and sports federations and organisations had become Brighton Declaration signatories by 1998, but this had only increased by 50 up to 2010. The Brighton Declaration itself has been used as a resource for women in sport groups for change, and, following our presentation, the IWG Co-Chairs will share with us their experiences of changes undertaken. The range of women in sport organisations in existence both before and after the Brighton Conference were lobbying globally and ensured that there were references to sport and physical activity in the United Nations World Conference on Women Platform for Action in 1995. To counter concerns that the early successes should not lose momentum, the legacy of the Second World Conference in 1998 was the Windhoek Call for Action to develop links with the growing international activities. The World Conferences in Windhoek, Montreal, and Kumamoto all facilitated significant developments regionally. There are very apparent increases in the number of reports from African countries following Windhoek in 1998, and from Asian countries leading up to Kumamoto in 2006. Because the women in sport movement diversified so much, it was becoming increasingly challenging to monitor all the actions which were occurring. We also looked at the progress reports to see work undertaken by organisations which was not directly reported to the IWG. So, for example, in the Montreal to Kumamoto progress report, the African Women in Sport Association provided evidence that both Somalia and Sudan had women in sport associations, although these countries did not provide this information directly. Additionally, a survey by Japanese women in sport outlined work being undertaken in Bangladesh and Laos, which would not have been known otherwise because those countries did not report anything to the IWG. So, in recognition of the growth of women in sport work, the legacy of the Kumamoto World Conference was the commitment to collaboration. But in another sign of diversity within the women in sport movement, an important shift occurred with the Montreal to Kumamoto Progress Report in 2006. Organisations who had not signed the Brighton Declaration but were carrying out women in sport actions were actually reported on more than those organisations who had signed the Brighton Declaration. This included FIFA and the International Cricket Council, who both increased financial and human resources to advance the status of women in their sports. Finally, it is interesting to see that the number of organisations who had signed the Brighton Declaration but whom did not report their progress to the IWG increased over time. This could be an example of organisations not taking any actions concerning women in sport or not reporting their actions to the IWG. During this period, actions as diverse as the formation of women in sport commissions to the hosting of festivals aiming to increase the participation of girls in sport have taken place globally. The amount of work undertaken led to the UN acknowledging in 2007 that sport is a vehicle to promote gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. However, as we all know, issues still remain. The legacy of the 5th World Conference was the Sydney Scoreboard, an interactive tool detailing women in sports leadership positions globally. Each progress report has been more successful than the previous in attracting information. However, the Kumamoto to Sydney progress report had fewer reports because its overall presentation was more like a brochure of good practice. Therefore, we decided to base the second part of this project, so the empirical study, on the years 2006 to 2014. And, rather than reports from each country like previous progress reports, we chose to measure progress towards themes identified within the Brighton Declaration. My colleague Trond will now guide you through the methods we used to achieve this.
Thank you, Jordan. Our main source in gathering data for this study was an online questionnaire that was sent out by email to organizations during the summer and autumn of 2013. And the following 3 groups received an invitation to participate in the study: signatories of the Brighton Declaration on Women and Sport with known email addresses, organizations listed in the previous progress reports that have not signed the Brighton Declaration, and subscribers of the Catalyst, IWG's electronic newsletter. It should be mentioned that the Catalyst subscribers were asked if they were able to answer on behalf of an organization before they could proceed to the questions. A merge file of the 3 samples revealed 326 responses in total after double responses and answers from individuals not representing an organization had been removed. The participants were asked to submit information on behalf of their organizations on actions taken from 2006. They were asked 22 main questions that were based around the 10 principles of the Brighton Declaration. For the 22 main questions, the respondents were given the following 3 response alternatives: yes, no, and I don't know. If the respondents answered yes, they received a follow-up question which asked them to describe the actions they had taken, whereas those who answered no were requested to explain why they had not taken any actions. Both the yes and the no answers were analyzed and thereafter grouped into categories. Where organizations indicated they had taken actions, a number of these have been used as examples of good practice, and some of these organizations were also contacted by email and asked to provide further information for the final report. The content analysis of the no answers revealed that the vast majority could be categorized as not their remit. This was followed by not considered, and other large categories were no work done and equality in the treatment of men and women. It is reasonable that some organizations answered not their remit in certain questions. One example could be the question about elite-level athletes, as some of the organizations only work at the recreational level. However, not their remit, not considered, and no work done could be examples of ignorance toward women and sport issues too. For example, we were surprised that 37% suggested that there is no issue in response to the question concerning prevention of bullying, hazing, homophobia, sexual harassment, and abuse. The table to the left shows that responses from Europe constitute the greatest proportion of responses at 41%. This is more than twice as many as international organizations, which are the second largest group. The smallest number of responses were from Asia and Africa, both with 9%. When it comes to organizational types, the table to the right demonstrates that nearly 1 out of 4 responses were from national or regional sport federations, whereas only 8% were from governmental organizations. As you can see by the table, the other organizational types comprises between 11% and 16% of the responses. It is important to acknowledge that the organizations who took part in our study are not representative of all sport organizations worldwide. Those organizations that have answered our questionnaire do share a connection in regard to the IWG, however, either as a Brighton Declaration signatory or as a Catalyst subscriber. For example, it is reasonable to assume that there is an overrepresentation of organizations that have been active in implementing the principles in the Brighton Declaration. So, what did we find? The main results can be seen in this table, and as you can see, actions taken to increase participation were what most organizations indicated they had been doing since 2006. This was followed by educational material or programs that address gender equality issues and increase the public's knowledge about women's sport. For 10 of the actions, more than half of the organizations gave a positive answer. This means that for the other 12 types of action, less than half of the organizations had undertaken any activity. It should be mentioned that on the question with respect to initiatives of any other actions to promote gender equality in sport, only 13% answered yes to this. This indicates that our questions cover most issues related to women in sport in the world today. But as Elizabeth and Kari will now describe, there remains issues where much work needs to be done.
The first issue that we want to highlight from the report relates to childcare provision. Sports organisations clearly have a responsibility not only for providing the sports activities themselves, but also for providing an appropriate context in which these activities can take place, particularly to address the social constraints that we know can limit the participation of women in some sports. For example, in different countries, there are different solutions concerning childcare provision. We think that sports organisations should be given the resources so that they can take direct responsibility for this. The need for childcare provision is explicitly mentioned in Principle 2 of the Brighton Declaration if women with children are to be able to participate in sports. However, only 9% of the organisations who responded to our questionnaire stated that they'd taken any actions with regard to childcare provision. The most active geographical area is Africa, with 19% of organisations in this region indicating that they had undertaken initiatives. Of those that had done work, 52% were related to the provision of facilities and activities. For example, the Spanish Orienteering Federation offers competitions and an orienteering summer training camp for women of all ages. During this event, children from 1 to 6 years of age are looked after by carers, and they spend their time doing a variety of activities, such as painting, manual arts, and orienteering, with a small race adapted for the youngest called the Corallin. This enables mothers to return to physical activity soon after having a baby. And the idea is that if girls experience orienteering from a very young age, having their mothers as models and seeing other women practicing the sport, they will participate in the future. The second issue that we wanted to highlight is support for retiring female elite level athletes, and you may have seen some information in your packs that you received on registration. In recent years, women's elite sport has become more professionalised, and women also often continue their sporting career longer than before. But there's increasing evidence that female athletes are not well supported in their preparations for or their experiences of retirement from elite sport. In our research, only 1/3 of the organisations have taken action since 2006 to support female athletes when they retire from elite level sports. The organisations most likely to offer support to retiring athletes are the national and regional sports associations, with 36% indicating that they did so. The support that's given to retiring athletes includes organisations offering educational training, employment opportunities, and delivering post-career programmes. For example, the Algerian Olympic Committee has created a programme to improve living conditions and adaptation to a professional working life for retired athletes. The course is managed by the Algerian Olympic Committee, the Solidarity Committee, the International Volleyball Federation, and the Algerian Volleyball Union. Its objective was to give female former elite athletes the necessary expertise to improve themselves and to help female former players to become coaches and leaders in sport. Also in Austria, the Federal Ministry of Defence and Sports funds CADA, an organisation that supports dual careers, through a programme which provides flexible education opportunities and aims, and I quote, to help athletes to find their path during their career through consulting, qualification programmes and active placements which provide for their future. We invited organisations to provide information related to the safety of the female athlete, including the prevention of eating disorders and sport injuries, and protection from sexual harassment and abuse. With respect to eating disorders, there's considerable evidence that women in society generally experience a societal pressure to display thinness in their body shape, and many sports reinforce this social norm. In particular, sports that require weight management due to weight classes for competitions, or because athletes are judged on their aesthetic appearance, can lead coaches to pressure athletes to lose weight, which can in turn contribute to disordered eating behaviours. Only 30% of the organisations in our study had taken any actions to protect female athletes from developing eating disorders. The highest number of incidences was seen in Asia, with 50% of organisations in this region indicating that they had taken actions, and in universities and academic organisations, with 49% of these taking actions. Of the actions taken, 69% were related to education. For example, Triathlon Australia has trained their coaches to detect early warning signs of eating disorders. Coaches are also required to change their coaching techniques to ensure that girls are not embarrassed. And furthermore, Triathlon Australia has supported the development of a DVD called Growing Up in Lycra to assist girls in swimming, gymnastics and triathlon in feeling proud of their bodies. As more and more women get active in sport, there's also evidence that the number of injuries is increasing. Women often have to use inappropriate equipment that was designed for men and feel under pressure to overtrain and take risks to be taken seriously as athletes, and this often leads to injuries. Sports organisations have a responsibility to ensure that they balance the emphasis on performance and achievement with consideration to the welfare of their athletes. 43% of the organisations had taken actions to prevent female athletes from sport and exercise injuries. The most active organisations were those from the Americas, with 74% of these indicating that they had addressed this issue, and national and regional sports organisations with 57% taking actions. More than half of the actions taken to protect female athletes from injuries were related to education. For example, the Swedish Football Association has identified that knee injuries are common in football and that teenage girls are particularly vulnerable. Every year there are approximately 800 knee injuries in women's and girls' football in Sweden, and serious knee injuries are 3 times more common in young women compared with men of the same age. Therefore, together with an insurance company, the Swedish Football Association initiated the Knee Control Project in 2008. The purpose was to train football coaches, managers, parents and players in how to train knee control, and it aims to prevent knee injuries in female players aged 12 years and over. A scientific study, which included 341 teams with more than 4,500 players, showed that players with trained knee control had a significantly lower risk of suffering anterior cruciate ligament injury compared with the control group.
Another safety issue is related to harassment and abuse, with the impacts being very severe for both athletes and sports organizations. 20 years ago, this was a non-issue for many organizations. But as more studies have demonstrated that harassment and abuse also occur in sports, preventive measures have been taken to combat and eradicate this kind of violence, among others by worldwide organizations. By worldwide organizations like UNICEF and the International Olympic Committee. In our study, half of the organization had taken action since 2006 to prevent harassment and abuse from occurring during sport and/or exercise. And in Africa, it was as many as 70%. Whereas only 33% of the organizations in Asia had taken preventive actions in this area. And the majority of the actions on preventive work were the development of guidelines or policy, followed by education. For example, the Women and Sport Committee of the Czech Olympic Committee published a booklet regarding how to prevent abuse and harassment in sport. And this booklet has been distributed by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports to all schools in Czech Republic and also by the Czech Olympic Committee to all sports organizations and all sports clubs in Czech Republic. And another example is from Women Win, who produced an organizational self-assessment on child protection, which includes aspects on homophobia, harassment and abuse. And this work was carried out primarily through the Australian Sport Outreach Program in India from 2011 to 2013, motivated by the fact that sport in India is often seen as unsafe, especially for girls. Concerning leadership, getting more women into leadership positions has always been crucial and looked upon as a key prerequisite to achieving gender equality in sports organization. Principle 6 in the Brighton Declaration refers specifically to the importance of increasing the number of women in such positions, with special attention given to recruitment, development, and retention. We invited the organization to provide information related to refereeing, coaching, and decision-making. The least number of programs and policies have been developed in the area of refereeing, with only 33%. In Europe, the percentage is as low as 21%, whereas Oceania has 51%. Most of the initiatives taken in this area include programs and education, but also awareness and equality projects were mentioned. And with respect to equality, the International Canoe Federation, ISF, has a rule that one female must be elected on each technical committee, and officials and referees have to be from both genders, and they aim to achieve 50-50 gender split. There is a lack of female coaches and instructors all over the world, particularly in elite level sport. But 41% of the organizations have developed some initiative to increase the number of women coaches. More than half of the initiative taken to recruit or retain or enhance female coaches concerns programs and education. A lot of work has been undertaken in Canada, for example. The Coaching Association of Canada holds an annual national coach workshop for the development of leadership competencies, networking and support system for national level female coaches. And the Canada Games Apprenticeships program aim to prepare coaches to fill the role of head coach or assistant coach in future games. Furthermore, a 3-year national apprenticeships program supports female coaches aspiring to become future national level coaches with the support of the National Sport Organization. We all know that it is important to have more female decision makers in sport, not only in relation to the development of sport, but also as role models. Looking back, there has been considerable attention in the past about how to increase the number of female sport leaders. One can therefore question how successful these initiatives have been when one looks at international statistics in this area. The number on the Sydney scoreboard also demonstrates large variations. The fact that half of the organizations have taken action since 2006 to increase the number of females in decision-making position shows that this is still an important issue. But taking the statistics into account and the focus that has been all these years on female leadership since the Brighton conference, it is almost strange that not more initiatives have been undertaken the last 8 years. It is not surprising that it is the women and sport organizations who have developed most policies and programs in this area, altogether 62%. And most of the examples mentioned fall under the category program and education, followed by actions related to increasing women's representation on boards. An example, Viksport is a non-governmental member-based organisation in the state of Victoria in Australia. In response to research indicating that women are substantially underrepresented in leadership and governance roles in sport, Viksport has delivered a range of programs to strengthen the role of female leaders in Victorian sport. And through its Good Governance project, Viksport has assisted 28 state sporting organizations to audit their governance structures and develop targeted actions, plans to improve their culture, policy framework, and governance process to promote equity and inclusion. And another example from UK is the Women and Leadership Development Programme developed by UK Sport. It addresses the low level of women in senior administrative positions in sport and helped to create equal opportunities for women in competitive environment. All participants here were also teamed up with a mentor, usually an established woman leader, to provide additional support. UK Sports' aim by 2017 is for all funded national governing boards to be constituted of at least 25% women members. Now, this has been a lot of numbers and percentages for you. We would like to conclude now and say that based on predominantly the principles of the Brighton Declaration, we surveyed if 326 organizations from all over the world had taken any action since 2006 to address issues women encounter in sport. Summarizing all the actions, this table shows those organizations that have been most active in developing equality for women and sport since 2006. At the top of the list, with actions taken in 20 out of those 22 areas we asked about, are 3 very different types of organizations from different continents. It's Government of Styria, Department of Sports from Austria, it's Liberian Women and Sport Association, and its Sacred Sports Foundations. The organizations from Africa and Asia and the women's sports organizations have been most active in attempting to implement the Brighton Declaration since 2006, and organizations from Europe and international and continental sport organizations the least. However, it is important to have in mind that we only have tried to survey the amount and types of action programs and initiatives that have been carried out since 2006. And we don't know, as Trond said earlier, about their impact or effect. As mentioned by Jordan, the overall trend from 1994 to 2010 indicated a high number of signatories of the Brighton Declaration in the years immediately following the '94 conference, with the number of new signatories decreasing in later years. This has changed dramatically during the last 4 years. I have in my manuscript that the number of signatories today is 415. I learned yesterday 419. Yeah. This is a very positive trend, and looking back over the last 20 years, we can conclude that a lot of progress has taken place concerning women and sport. In the last 8 years, many initiatives have been taken, as shown in the table presented by Trond earlier, particularly to increase the active participation of girls and women in physical activity and sports, to develop education or training material programs about equality issues, to increase the public knowledge and understanding about women's sport and exercise, to support elite-level athletes, and to ensure that the opportunity for girls are equal to those for boys in developing physical fitness or basic sports skills. But as we have shown, there is still work to be done, both in new and old areas. Based on the results, we will recommend that the following topics or areas are given priority in the years to come. The development of childcare provision for people involved in sports in different roles and at different arenas. The development of programs to support the retirement of female elite-level athletes. The development of preventive measures which ensure that sport and exercise is a safe arena for girls and women, particularly in relation to bullying, hazing, homophobia, sexual harassment and abuse, eating disorders, and injuries. Emphasizing increased female leadership in different sporting roles, such as refereeing, coaching, and still decision-making. Different strategies, such as gender mainstreaming and women-specific initiative, should be considered in the implementation of the principles laid down in the Brighton Declaration. And the results from this study indicate that initiatives such as women's committees, women's organization, can be a very successful way to do this. The study also reveals some results which indicate that consciousness raising about human rights and equality issues are still an important focus, as they are a prerequisite for gender equality. We will therefore end this session, as we end the report, by a quote from the first paragraph in the Brighton Declaration. Every effort should be made by state and government machineries to ensure that institutions and organizations responsible for sport comply with the equality provisions of the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. It's still very actual, 20 years later. Thank you for your attention.
Kari, Jordan, Trond, Elizabeth, marvelous work, stupendous work. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's the kind of research we need more of in this area. It's multifaceted, it's convincing, and they took the time to do it. 2 years of hard work, tremendous. How many of you have once organized an international conference in your own country? How many of you? Courageous people. I know that I organized my first International Scientific Congress before the Olympic Games in Barcelona. We were in Malaga, and I was 25 years old, and I was terrified. You need courage to stand up and say, yes, I will organize an international conference in my country. We have 6 crazy women who have done that. To stand up in front of their peers and say, yes, I will take the initiative to organize an international conference to make this go forward. The first one of which was the Brighton conference. There was no guarantee that it would just not stay there, just one event. But one after the other, these brave women, one after the other, said, yes, I will organize the next one. We have 6 of the 7 co-chairs of the IWG and of the conferences that have been organized in that context that we saw in the report. Only one is missing, Sue Neal from Montreal, who has sent many messages saying that unfortunately, for personal reasons, could not attend this event, but hey, I'm from Montreal originally. Maybe I can bring some of that spirit to you. Great place, Montreal, great choice for a conference. But nevertheless, I'd like to mention your names and the conferences, and then after that, I'll ask you to walk all together as a team on stage, if that is okay. So, of course, it started all with the legendary Dr. Anita White in Brighton. And then it went on to the Windhoek event in Namibia with the Honorable Minister Pendukeni Ivula Itana. And then it went on to Montreal, and then it went on to Japan, Kumamoto, Japan. And we have Dr. Etsuko Ogasawara with us. And then it went on further south to Sydney, Australia, and we have Dr. Johanna Adrianse with us. And this movement, this conference string was blessed with 2 great Finnish women as co-chairs. The first great woman, Ms. Birgitta Kervinen, ENGSO president and co-chair. And the current co-chair of these great conferences and of this one, Ms. Raja Mattila. All of you, get on stage. Get on here. Yeah, a big applause, please. A bigger.
Minister, you. Hi. Hello.
Boy. Here they are, ladies and gentlemen. 6 courageous ladies, 6 co-chairs. They made this happen. We would not be here without them. Lead the change, be the change. All right, you can all sit down now. Because I asked them to do something very special for us. It's to choose one picture or one idea, one event, one stepping stone since Brighton that has marked them the most. And through these pictures, we want to bring the stories of this great journey. And we're going to start with your picture. We're going to start with Anita's white picture. Anita, this is your picture. Tell us why you picked this picture as one of the great stepping stones from Brighton. Could you tell us, please?
Yes, I could. I chose this because it signifies the Brighton Conference. That was the delegate bag, the logo, the conference proceedings, the program.
I remember it well. Beautiful logo.
Yeah, we thought it was nice too. Anyway, the reason I chose it was you were quite right, André. We really didn't know when we staged that conference. First of all, if anyone would come to the conference, because previous to that, the conferences that there had been in Europe or in other parts of the world, but there'd never been a world conference for decision makers. So we were really quite surprised and relieved to get quite a few people at the conference. But that wasn't what made it so special. What made it so special was really what happened on the last day of the conference, which was pretty much unscripted, except that I knew I had to...
We'd like to get the benefit of the camera on you, so if you want to back up just a notch, and then we can get you on the big screen. Yes. Oh, gosh. Beautiful. Yes.
I won't look. Anyway, the last morning, the last morning, I know I was standing at the podium, and there were so many unexpected things and unplanned things that happened, and different people kept putting up their hands and saying, this is what we're going to do next. And we have got together and formed a group. And we have got together and decided to do such and such and such and such. And we realized that it wasn't going to end there, that it was going to continue. And one of the most amazing things was, we thought it might be a good idea if there were follow-up conferences, but we had no plans.
A very good idea indeed.
No plans at all until... The Honourable Pendukini Ivula Ithana, who was one of our keynote speakers, I had never met her before the conference, put her hand up.
She put her hand up.
And I said, yes, wondering what she was going to say. And she said, we invite you all to come to Namibia in 2 years' time.
What possessed you?
In the end, we made it 4, but everybody sort of cheered and said, yes, we're going to come. And there was the most amazing spirit and feeling in the room. And we knew then that something had started that wasn't just about a conference. It was about a whole movement. And I think, we've just seen the evidence of that today in the report. So that's my special moment, standing at the lectern, really not being sure what was going to happen and what was going to happen next, and then seeing all this happen. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Penny.
Madam Minister, what possessed you to stand up and say, come and see me in Windhoek? We don't have a picture for you, but what is that the most memorable moment when you stood up there and said, come to us?
Indeed. The world was captured in the euphoria of Namibia's independence. And I felt, while we were still celebrating the birth of that new nation, why not inviting the world to come to Namibia and see the baby,
And a very beautiful baby at that.
Very beautiful baby, indeed. And my proposal was accepted wholeheartedly, and from there, I didn't just walk, I ran.
For 4 years?
For 4 years, to make it sure that that conference indeed took place. And it did.
Applause for that. Hey, I mean, thank you. That is so, so fundamental. And then we moved on to Montreal, and then from Montreal, we went to Japan. Dr. Itsuko Ogasawara.
Yes, yes.
You were instrumental in making that happen.
Yeah.
No picture yet.
Let's take a look at your picture.
Yeah.
Why did you choose this picture? Next picture, please.
Yes.
Tell us about this picture. Why is this your most important stepping stone?
Because, as already talked about the story at the morning, and I attended the second Namibia conference. At the end of the conference, Dr. Anita White, as a co-chair, at the closing ceremony, said, the next conference will be held in Canada, then following conference will be held in Asia. Wow! I thought, we, the Asian people, need to organize this conference? That is my impression. Then, when I back to Japan, then I asked my friends, okay, Asia need to organize world conference. That means we need the people. Then we established Japanese Association for Women in Sports by just 13 people, my friends. Then
you got to start somewhere.
Also, I learned at the conference, but Brighton Declaration on Women in Sports. What is that? But everybody said Brighton was so dynamite and to change the world. So we decided. We went to the UK Sports to sign the Brighton Declaration. That is the thing.
So that's what it is.
Yeah, then we started to prepare
to
organize the Kumamoto conference.
That's in your office, is it?
Yeah.
That's in your office. Nice office.
Okay.
Nice pictures. Yeah. You all look very good. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And then we went from Japan further south. We went to Sydney, Australia. We have Dr. Joanna Adrianse. Let's take a look at your picture. What is your picture? Tell us about this picture. Why is this an important stepping stone? Oh, no, I'm sorry. We took Birgitta here. This is your picture. I wanted to keep the fins. I wanted to keep the fins at the end together because Birgitta is in a special role. She was instrumental early on, and she was instrumental with Helsinki. She was there both times. But in a way, time-wise, that's true. You were a co-chair at that time, in the year 2000s. Could you explain?
This is
we'll come
not
back
2000. This is Johanna's picture.
Is that your? Is that your picture?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
No.
It's not your. That's your picture.
No.
It's a nice
So
picture.
strange.
It's a very nice picture.
Is it not your picture?
Okay, can you explain it? Why do we have this picture? I
don't
only
know.
work here.
Is this on now? No.
We need a microphone,
Next one.
handheld mic. Is that your fault? It's not the right picture. Well, thank you for that. We're our press officer.
Is there another picture, the real picture, which I asked you to put here?
Well, hopefully we'll have that picture. But you can tell us something about that picture.
Yeah, it's a nice picture. We're all in it again. You see, we all keep meeting up and coming up with the next plan. But this was actually at the launch of the Anita White Foundation a couple of years ago.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I thought I wanted to get that in, you see. And this
That's
is
why you took it.
This is taken in Chichester, and Raya was there with Birgitta and Etsuko and a couple of her colleagues. And we are just outside the old cathedral wall. And I think it's the morning after, and we are discussing collaboration between Japan and Finland and the Anita White Foundation.
Yeah.
So you see, we keep doing these things all the time.
Tell us about your foundation. That's very, interesting.
Oh, well, this
In a nutshell. I know you want to talk about it for a long time, but please tell us. It's interesting. It's very interesting.
Okay, well, what we're trying to do, it's very small, but we're trying to bring together scholars and activists in women and sport.
Okay.
And it's based at the University of Chichester, which supports us, which is great. And we're really we've got a fund that supports education and development for the women leaders of tomorrow, particularly those from countries that have challenges. We've got a leadership academy coming off in a couple of weeks. We've also got an archive of all the original materials from the last 20 years that people have donated and that Jordan has used for his doctoral research.
I see.
So it's an academic
remarkable.
Leadership, nice little niche, and I think it's fantastic.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the accidental picture. Thank you very much. What's our next picture? Let's see what else our people put together.
Yes.
Okay, this
Now, is that your picture?
It is.
Okay.
Can we start anew? Joanna, tell us, why did you pick this picture as a stepping stone since Brighton?
Well, because this was in the year 2008, and it is in New York at the United Nations.
A lot of familiar people here.
Yeah. And we were at CSW, and CSW is the Convention on the Status of Women, a very exciting convention because there are about 4,000 people of all nations in the world. And we launched there the document, and you see that on the right-hand side, Women, Gender Equality and Sport. And it was for the first time in the history of the United Nations that they dedicated a full publication on women, gender equality and sport.
That's significant.
And the fact that someone in the middle, you can see, and I can see her sitting there on the right-hand side, and it is very appropriate that she's in the center of the picture because she was the driving force behind this initiative. She wrote a brief for it, and that's Carol Oglesby.
Carol, somewhere. Is she here?
Yeah. And the people around Carol, you can see quite a few familiar faces. They were there all at the time of the launch. And you might ask why it was so exciting there. Well, it was, of course, in New York, and New York is an exciting city. But there was more than that. It was the recognition that sport is more than a game. Yeah? It is an effective tool for the empowerment of women and girls. And the United Nations, they acknowledged that. And it was also, they also acknowledged that it was very important for actually achieving the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. So for me, that was an inspirational moment.
Of course it is.
And we have built on that for every year since. We have been, either WSI and IWG being there. And the Sydney scoreboard, the legacy of the Sydney conference, was conceptualized within the context of the Millennium Development Goals.
Brilliant. We're learning so much about the history of the entire process. Thank you so much for sharing. Applause for that, please. That's a great picture. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to actually go back. We're going to go back to this picture for you. Birgitta, you were co-chair early on. You were instrumental in bringing this conference to Finland, you know, even before the other Finnish co-chair, Raija Mattila. You'd like to speak to this picture anyway, right?
Absolutely. That's
because
fantastic.
You are there. It's a beautiful picture of you, Birgitta.
Yeah, and it's not that important that I am on the picture, but all the other
tell us about that.
Around. But I would like to say the picture I wanted to show to you. There on the picture was Christina Touré, the chairperson of European Women and Sport, and our honorary Madam President Halonen. And that picture was taken in Japeskivei meeting in Lahti, 1997, I learned today. And what also tells about this picture? So it tells about the sisterhood. The support I have got during these years. I have got support abroad, I have got support at the home front, I have got support from, mostly from women, but also from men. And I would like to say that this couldn't be this work possible, ever, without that support and feeling of sisterhood and brotherhood. And this journey after Brighton have personally given to me my, let's say, diamonds in my life. Of course, my daughter is the biggest diamond, but anyway. So thank you very much to all of you in Finland and abroad for that fantastic feeling and support during these years. The sisterhood, which we can also see here. Thank you.
And thank you. And thank you, Birgitta, for the leadership you have demonstrated over the years. You know, there aren't that many European leaders who are female in the European, you know, federations of sport. And it's admirable what you've achieved. So thank you for that, for all of us. All right. And last, but certainly not least, the crazy Finn who stood up and said, yeah, come to Helsinki. You're the last in the chain. And I'm going to bring up your picture here. Interesting picture. Could you please explain? I'm a little bit lost. Nice spikes.
Yes. Well, I have to go back to Brighton. And because I was not participating in the Brighton conference, but those women from Finland who were participating, they were so enthusiastic about the results, about the Brighton Declaration, that they came to the Ministry of Education, where I was working at that time, and wanted to see the minister saying that we need to do something here in Finland.
Already in 1994?
Yes.
Already, okay.
Yes. And then the minister immediately nominated me to lead a committee to apply the Brighton Declaration into Finnish sport. So that was how my personal journey started as part of the IWG movement for women and sport. And then I received an invitation to be a speaker at the Windhoek conference. And I was so delighted that I received this and absolutely immediately phoned to the travel agency, how can I get to the Windhoek and Namibia?
And you wore those shoes in
Namibia? I'm not there yet. Be patient. Be patient.
I'm kidding. I know.
But now we are here in Helsinki. This is how my personal journey started. Yeah. But I just wanted to bring this red shoe with spikes, because this is an award we every year present to a person or an organization which has shown activity, a special activity to enhance sport for women and girls and gender equality. And I just wanted to bring this shoe. Here is, by the way, one of those ladies who has received this shoe.
Thank you.
Why I wanted to show this, because I think that we should show more respect to those women who are working and make them visible, because here media every year they write a lot, they show that on TV, and that is why I think that we should think about awarding those who are doing this work. So this is our award every year.
There it is.
And some prize money in addition.
Who would like to win this next time? Anybody? It's one at a time. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it is gorgeous, but of course, this is a national way to pay respect.
It won't fit.
It won't, damn. Too bad, I was kind of hoping, you know. Fantastic. Ladies, I just want to, on behalf of everyone, thank you for bringing us on this amazing journey. And may this be a 30-year, a 40-year, a 50, a 100-year tradition. No. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're approaching the end, but we have a very special treat for you, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of housekeeping. You know that we're going to be having all kinds of activities in the morning that you can join in, sport activities, but we'll also have something very, very special tomorrow morning. We'll be celebrating diversity through interfaith encounters in Helsinki Hall. In this building, it's called the Helsinki Hall. So it's diversity through interfaith encounters at 8 o'clock. You don't have to be especially religious. Everybody comes with their own background, their own spiritual background, and we will have a very special event at 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow morning. Before we start at 9 o'clock. So it'll be a very special event. I really highly recommend it, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's a little bit early, but breakfast starts at the hotel at 6:30, so you're fine. The first plenary session will start at 9 o'clock tomorrow sharp in this auditorium. It will be talking about leadership and coaching, so Be Your Best Coach is the name of the session, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, so you cannot miss that. To celebrate these 20 years since the Brighton Declaration, we're holding, as you know, a reception at Eureka, a wonderful technology museum, future museum in the great city of Vantaa. It'll be hosted by the mayor, Kari Nenonen, the mayor of Vantaa, and Anneli Pauli, who's the director of the Eureka Finnish Science Center. We'll be leaving with buses from here. So as soon as we finish here, we are taking buses to Eureka. And I'm sure you will enjoy your evening. But before that, I think we do need, again, to thank the IWG Co-Chairs. We do need to thank all the signatories that have given such weight to this. And we wanted to do this in a very, very special way with two very, very special women. One is somebody that my daughter, she is 10 years old. Her name is Alexandra. And I have a good friend in the entertainment business here. Most people think that he's my son. It's very strange. His name is Axel Smith. It's very strange. But I beat him in a speaking competition, and he immediately invited me to see The Voice of Finland with my daughter Alexandra, who worships him and all the singers. And we were able to convince one of these singers. I think she has the most beautiful voice I've ever heard on that television show. And she wanted to perform something very special for you tonight. She wanted to perform, well, I'm not going to tell you what it is. I think you will be touched and surprised by it. I want to introduce to you the wonderful Tuuli Okkonen and her accompanist, Anni Mattila. Tervetuloa!
If you look inside your heart, you don't have to be afraid of what you are. There's an answer. If you reach into your soul, and the sorrow that you know will melt away. And then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, and you cast your fears aside, and you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you finally see the truth that a hero lies in you. It's a long road when you face the world alone. No one reaches out a hand for you to hold. Well, you will find now if you search within yourself, and the emptiness you felt will melt away. And then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, and you cast the fears aside, and you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you finally see the truth that a hero lies in you. Dreams are hard to follow, but don't let anyone tear them away. And hold on, there will be tomorrow, and in time you'll find the way. And then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, and you cast your fears aside, and you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you finally see the truth that a hero lies in you. Kiitos, thank you. I guess you all heard this next song, so please sing with us. Lead the change, be the change. It's up to you to move the world. Oh, lead the change, be the change. Yes, we can make things better. We can show the world. Lead the change, be the change. It's up to you to move the world. Everybody, come on! Whoa, lead the change, be the change. Yeah, we can make things better. We can show the way. Hey, come on, lead the change, be the change. It's up to you to move the world. Oh, lead the change, be the change. We can make things better. We can show the way.
Be the change.
and have a wonderful night.
Kiitoksia. Kiitoksia. Woo, 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 woo. And the buses are leaving for Eureka. Yes. Woohoo! They'll wait for us. They'll wait for us.